keeping a broad and open definition of programs, because I think the topic of social learning requires that, is to discuss a little bit about what are the things that an L&D team can do to leverage social learning and maybe build some structure around this. So yeah, I want to kick this off. What sort of programs would you consider core to social learning that if you do want to leverage this mode of learning, what kind of programs would, or activities really, would an L&D team kind of like pursue? Nathan, do you want to take this one off too?
Sure. Yeah, I can start. And I guess my answer for this is based on just working with and building software for learning and development teams among our customer base and seeing, both how our software helps them, but also what other things they are doing. To me, the three primary formats that I've seen really effectively work for social learning is one-on-one mentorship programs where you're matching people across the organization one-on-one to learn based on skills and goals. Two is more of a group format. You can call it a lunch and learn or a workshop. Lunch and learn kind of tends to have the connotation that an employee is coming in and bringing the content versus a workshop might be, maybe either an employee or like the L&D team themselves or an external consultant. The point is you have a one-off group session, call it a lunch and learn or a workshop. And then the third format that works really well is recurring group circles. So that's also a group event, but where you've actually put together a cohort or a circle of people that is consistent across, say, 6 to 12 weeks. What we've seen that really work well for is maybe putting together a bunch of new managers in a peer group, or, for example, for women at doing lean-in circles. So within those three main formats, I'd say then you have audiences. What are the common kind of audiences that you want to run this for? And there's a bunch that I have in mind that I've seen work really well. One is, of course, a specific department. Let's say you want to run one-on-one mentorship within sales, so that your, say, sales development reps are being mentored by your account executives. Another is employees that are onboarding or interns new to the company. That's a really good audience to do these formats for. New managers, as I mentioned earlier, high potential talent, DEI group, or an ERG like women at. And what we've even seen kind of post-pandemic is something like parents, for example, because whether you like it or not, there are a set of skills that you kind of need to learn to be someone who's a parent that's succeeding in the workplace and managing both of those responsibilities at the same time. So we've seen those work really well. I think some other kind of unique ones, depending on the nature of your company, could also be a hackathon. So a hackathon is a really great way for engineers to get together and some of the adjacent roles around that to kind of interact together, learn from each other while producing some kind of product. And if you're not in an engineering organization, there are things like innovation tournaments or other formats that are similar to that. Internally at Together Software, every single yearly retreat that we do, we have a case competition that's similar to a hackathon where we consider that a social learning event. So those are just some of the formats that I've seen.
Yeah. No, I think you touched on a very good point. I think one of the things we've learned here at Together by interfacing with the topic of mentorship so often is that, and as professionals, mentorship is one of these things that even as an individual professional, we've sought out ourselves. And I think that's a great understanding for making the case that it does happen. Again, whether L&D wants it to happen or not, there's going to be a set of employees who are seeking mentorship out. I think what we've found by working with a lot of clients is that by making it an formal or an intentional program where there is invites and there is targeted outreach towards certain audiences, that really expands the benefit, expands the accessibility of the program, and the benefit of the social learning means as well to that one-to-one or one-to-many connection. I'm sure we could talk about mentorship all day, but I want to make sure that Rory gets some time on this because I know he's got a lot of valuable experience creating social learning programs that also go a lot more beyond mentorship. So Rory, would love to hear your take on, so we switch slides here while doing the audio. Would love to hear your take on what kind of programs are effective and core to social learning.
Yeah. So when developing we don't look at it, or I try not to look at it as we're going to develop social learning programs, right? We're looking to create programs that work, that distribute the knowledge that we're looking to distribute effectively, and then that we can track outcomes for. I think, and again, social learning conceptually is really great. It's really interesting. But when we start to say, well, this is social learning and this isn't social learning, is when we start to kind of run into division of things that really aren't necessary. And then we start to kind of really think about, well, what is social learning versus collaborative learning? Right. So if I'm looking at our learning management system at Komodo, we use a product called 360 Learning, which we really like, but their big thing is collaborative learning. Well, what's the difference? And as soon as so therefore, like once we start saying, well, this is social, this isn't, then we're not looking holistically at the organization. We're not looking at the culture that we're trying to build when it comes to learning and development. Again, our goal is to meet the needs of the business, what works, what doesn't. In some organizations, some things work. So at Komodo, podcasts work. They're great. But at other organizations that I've worked at, they didn't. And so it's just kind of, it's not worth trying to fit the foot into the glass slipper at that company in that organization. If mentorship works, then great. But just because you have a mentorship program and people have mentorship meetings, is it working? What are the data points that we're looking at to determine that does work? Because could that time be spent elsewhere? But again, like to me, when it comes to developing social learning platforms or programs, it's all about leadership and executive buy-in. It's all about creating that culture of learning because you want people to seek it out, right? You want them to share. You want them to be at the lunch and learn, right? Like you don't want to reach out to somebody and say like, hey, do you want to be on this lunch and learn panel? And their response is, no, I got 10 other meetings that are a priority. But if learning and the culture of learning is important, then people are going to prioritize that. They're going to feel that they bring value to the company and to the organization, and they'll be on that panel. And then from there, you can continue to kind of grow those social aspects.